So here's something that I can tell you. When you start looking for your immortal soul, to see if you have one, some weird things start to happen. At least that's what happened to me. And it took me about 20 years to figure out that all of this is actually really well known. And it has been documented for thousands of years. So this is why I'm making the video. If anyone else is on that search to figure out, do they actually have a soul? And they're tired of the faith-based ways that you first have to believe in something. They want to practically, actually know. I guess I call this practical spirituality. It's not about believing, it's about experiencing, it's about knowing. That was at least what I wanted for me. Here's my story. It started when I was a teenager, maybe 16, 17, mostly 17. And I noticed that most of my friends were interested in things that were not really pertinent to me. They were not interested in the same things that I was interested in. I had one key question, one thing that I really wanted to know. I wanted to know if I have a soul, and if this soul is something that survives death. I really wanted to know this, but none of my friends seemed to care too much about that at that age. So I decided that I needed to find the answer, and when looking through books, when looking towards religions, I wasn't satisfied. None of the religions that I had come in contact with spoke to me, and everything seemed to be faith-based. So basically first you have to believe in a God, and then after you die you will see that you will go to heaven, hell, whatever it is. And this wasn't convincing at all. So I decided to take the rational approach. I threw away the books and I started to think, okay, so if I have a soul and it's immortal, I have it now. It's not just after my death that I will experience it. It's here. It has to be here now. Can I experience it now? Is there a way for me to feel my soul? Let's try it. And so I did. So I started thinking, well, my soul is not my body, because obviously the body will die. So let me try to filter out any physical sensations. So I would sit down, and the first thing I would do was just relax, just try to not have any part of my body call its attention. And so I would relax. Okay, so it's not my body. I know that I won't have these physical eyes, and so let's remove anything that I see. And so I would close my eyes. Well, of course, the sounds, that's the same thing. It's not my soul, it's coming through my physical body somehow, it seems. And so let me sit in a quiet place. And so what I would do is I would, every day after school, when I'd get home, I was the first to arrive, and there was peace and quiet at that time. So I would spend 20 minutes every day on searching my soul. And the search continued. So I knew it wasn't my body, my perceptions. And so then I would sit and I would move inwards, trying to feel my soul, whatever it was. I called it the soul, but I didn't know what it was and if it was there. And then it occurred to me that my thoughts are just my thoughts, things that appear for a limited time, and so that's definitely not my soul. So I shouldn't focus on my thoughts. So I would, when thoughts would come up, I would say, okay, so you're not it, that's fine, but right now I'm doing the most important thing in my life, because this is how I can find the answer to the most important question at that time. And that question was, do I have this immortal soul? And so I would move away the thoughts. As soon as they would arise, I would say, yes, but you are not my soul. And so I would go back to trying to feel my essence. And then different feelings and emotions would come up, and the same thing, that's just a feeling, that's an emotion. It will pass. That's not me, that's not my essence. So I would let that fall away. And I would go back to just trying to be me, being, just the sense of being, the presence. And I would look for what I was. And you know what happened? I was frustrated because I wasn't able to find anything. Because any feeling that I would find would just be a feeling. And it would pass, so that wasn't me. But I continued. And here's what happened. Here's the weird thing that started happening. After about 2 weeks was when I first started to notice the changes. The first change was just relaxation. I was more relaxed. I was feeling less stress in my life. So it was a nice thing. I thought, oh, it's a nice side effect. I guess I'm relaxing more. It's fine. That was good. But then a few more weeks passed, and the next thing I noticed started happening on a spontaneous basis, in a spontaneous way. It was beauty. I remember, for instance, I was walking to school, and I would always walk the same way. And there was this tree that I would see every day. Just a tree, nothing special, right? Except that all of a sudden now, when I looked at it, it was breathtaking. It was beautiful. And all of this beauty would just appear to me from nowhere throughout my day. Now and then, it would just be there. I thought that was strange. I didn't know how and why this happened to me, but it's kind of nice. The world becoming more beautiful. And then more time passed. The next thing I noticed started to be so strange that I couldn't quite believe in it. The next thing was coincidences. All of a sudden my life started to become full of synchronicities. All of these coincidences, it seemed. One time I was walking down the street and I was thinking about something. And I was wondering, I wonder what this is, and I wonder what the answer to this is. And in that moment there were two people walking past me. And one of them spoke to the other. And the thing they said was actually the answer to my question. Seemed surreal, funny, strange. Happens sometimes, but then these kinds of things started to happen more and more. Until one day, I remember there was this practically a stranger, and he started to tell me about his life for some reason. But the thing is that in my mind, I would pose a question. And as he was speaking and talking about his life, he would answer it. But he didn't seem to know that he was answering my question. And then I asked another question in my mind, and he answered it. And another. This was such a surreal experience for me that I didn't really know what to do with it. how is this possible? And it's starting to happen more and more in my life. I couldn't quite figure this out. And then the next thing that happened was it seemed as though I became less reactive to all sorts of, especially negative things. Whenever someone would say something, instead of reacting, I would be in another space, almost as if I was watching the thing happening, almost as if I was watching a movie. And I wasn't as deeply engaged in the negative reaction. And I actually had the choice. Instead of just going into the negative reaction, I could choose, do I want to go into it? And then I would start choosing not to. I don't really need that. And the way I would see things was as if from the outside, and I had access to more information about the situation, and I felt more free, and I could experience everything fully in a different way, because there was a lot less fear. And I think it is the fear that limits the enjoyment of the experience. And it's so interesting that all of these things started happening, and yet I had no extraordinary experience during my search, during my 20 minutes each day when I was going deeply into my beingness. There was no extraordinary experience in that for me at that time. And this was what changed my life, my way of perceiving, my way of being, more than anything else had changed in my life. And I didn't quite understand what it was. At that time, I didn't even know that what I was doing was a type of meditation. I had no clue. A few years later, I started reading books about meditation and experiences that were a little bit similar to mine. And it wasn't until much later that I realized that all of this information is actually here, available for us to read about as well. First thing, experience it, and then read about it. And when you read about it, that's when you notice, oh wow, I know that, I recognize that, this is true. And your understanding grows in an inspired way. So this is what I would like to share more with others. Let them know that this already exists. Where does it come from? It comes from the Upanishads. And there's a school that was created much later based on them, and it's the non-dual school, Advaita Vedanta, that conveys this information in different ways. So you can go back to the scriptures, you can go to books about it, you can go to teachers who talk about it. But I would suggest, first of all, experiencing it, starting to experience it, and then learn more about it. And as I was learning more about it, I decided to draw some of the metaphors, because some of the things that you experience are beyond objects. And so it's a little bit difficult to say exactly what it is. And that's why the teachers tend to use metaphors to make us understand things, go into the understanding beyond the object. And I've drawn, I think, 55 pictures of things like that. that have illuminated my understanding. These are metaphors, mostly, from well-known teachers of non-duality. And I've put them into the format of a book. And so if you'd like to play with them, play around with them, I invite you to take a look at my book. It's based on questions, the existential questions that we have. And for each question, such as, is there God? Who is God? Is there free will? What's the purpose of life? All of these things, for each question there is a metaphor that is drawn, illustrated, and then there are some words. This is just my interpretation of the teachings of the great teachers who teach non-duality. I'm not an expert in any way, but I've had a lot of fun drawing these drawings. So if you feel inspired, I would suggest to first start to look for your own soul, for your essence. I don't call it soul anymore, but to look for your essence, your beingness. Try to stay in it, stay with it, and see what it brings to your life. And then play around with the metaphors and search out some interesting teachers, read some books. And this may be the most transformational thing that you ever do. It has been for me in my life. Thank you for watching.